Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 2020 My Team Career Mode, episode number 33 today for the Austrian Grand Prix in Season 2. If you guys did miss the previous one, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one. But at the very start of this episode, we have a sponsor renewal with DSB Optics. We're actually going to go ahead and manage the sponsor and look for some more potential better ones, because now the car is at a point where we could potentially, be getting consistent podiums, the high points of the constructors, first place for a few laps. So now we can go for the higher tier, the higher goal bonuses, but those are obviously the actual thing we need to do is a lot harder. But now that the car is in a stage where I feel like every race almost now we're kind of disappointed if we're not going to be going for the podium position, I think we can go for something like this. We've got this sponsor, I think it's called Zanzer, which is also a podium goal. We've already got one podium goal sponsor, but this is pretty much the same thing, but you get a higher goal bonus. So kind of a no-brainer there. It's the highest available to us as it stands right now. I'm sure there might be a few more that are unlocked maybe once we get to acclaim level 20. That's a long old grind. It seems like the last time we actually went up a level was like absolute ages ago, so we've still got a while to get to level 20, but once we do, maybe those will be some juicy sponsors to unlock. But we're going to go for that, and so that's going to hopefully be positive in terms of cash flow, continue to give ourselves a lot of money. We still have a decent amount of money to actually spend, so we're going to go ahead and look at some more HQ upgrades. Now, we made plenty of durability ones last episode due to you guys voting. I thought I would decide where we're going to spend the money next in terms of, I didn't want to go for another performance one as well, so I'm not going to go into aero, engine, or chassis, because we don't need to at this stage. At this stage, we're not bottlenecking ourselves with the R&D tree, the car's in a good place, and also we've already got some upgrades pending on the durability side, but we don't have enough funds to go ahead and splash the cash on the aero side of things just quite yet, in terms of I want to kind of wait and save it up a little bit and see how we are in terms of where the car is. So instead, we're going to go ahead and invest in the personnel, because it's always a good thing to try and improve our teammates. Sainz, as it is right now, try and improve him where we can. I thought maybe the fitness center is going to be best. That'll improve the awareness and racecraft of Sainz. Pace-wise, I think he's actually pretty decent. I think he's got that overall one-lap pace in him to at least match me, let alone beating me sometimes. But I think maybe I've already seen a few races. Maybe the racecraft and awareness could be a little bit better, just to allow him to make those moves and not get stuck in traffic here and there. So that was my thinking with improving that side of the HQ. We've only got 2 days till Austria in the activity timeline, so just going to go ahead and choose some reaction training for him, and we're going to go straight into this race weekend then, as that's all the admin we can talk about. So in terms of the R&D and how we're looking, it's a bit of a plateau stage. Obviously, the last performance upgrade we made was, I think, going into the Canadian Grand Prix, although the right-hand side graph here, the zoomed-in version, for some reason, it's saying that we've upgraded from France to Austria, where we definitely haven't. So for some reason, that's completely wrong. When we move through to the bigger graph, you can actually see we've actually been plateauing since Azerbaijan, actually. But obviously, our car's been in very good shape, because Mercedes has been plateauing since then. So we've kept that level pegging kind of, gap to them in the graph. And the only guys kind of catching us up are Red Bull and Ferrari. But even then, we've been keeping them at bay. Obviously, France was a very good Grand Prix for the team. Sainz did a mega strategy to get first place. We came second. It was a 1-2. So really, if you look at those results, at the very bottom of that chart there, first, fourth, first, second, it's been a very decent, consistent, last few episodes. We haven't had to worry too much about pure performance, although I do definitely want to add to it, because there are certain stages where I can definitely feel the car is lacking some downforce, and we may very well feel that lack of downforce today as we go in towards qualifying. It is absolutely chucking it down here, very doom and gloom here at the Austrian Grand Prix. We've got a full wet session in Q1, and it looks like there's going to be rain for the entirety of this Saturday. So we're very much going to have to be on our toes in this entire session in terms of as the track evolves. I think it's actually going to get to light rain at the end of the day, but it's starting off in heavy rain, as you can clearly see on the blue wall tyre. This is our second consecutive run on this set of tyres, and we improved by a decent amount, 5/10 there. Purple and first and last sector, pretty good, but as I mentioned, we need to really keep at it, because by the end of the session, it's time for inters. Everyone swapped over. We had to go for another 2 runs consecutively, so again, we improved on this second run, getting about nearly 4/10 through the last corner. Still very tricky on inters, I must say, compared to the full wets, but a little bit more grip out there, and we're able to make it through into Q2. No issues, but I was actually genuinely worried, because you just never know with these conditions. And also, if I just kind of, if I get caught napping, not realizing the session is changing in terms of the weather, you can get caught out. But into Q2, once again, we are dealt with a small little fault.
Okay, I know you're eager to get out there, but I'm going to need you to be patient patient for a few minutes. We're just trying to zero in on an oil leak.
So it's a lubrication system fault, so we've been getting various different ones. We haven't actually got the same one twice now, but there are various different things going on. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe there was cause to improve the durability of this car, and obviously that's coming on the way, and the HQ's been improved. But obviously, though, those improvements of the R&D for the durability are for the engine, so I don't know if that's actually going to change all these random failures. To be fair, it keeps me, you know, like I said, on the toes, as well as the weather. Those kind of things really keep you alert, because, you know, obviously you then have less time to work with. Being Q2 wasn't much of an issue compared to like Monaco at Q3 where we had that issue before, as we're able to have enough time to go. Although I will say that first lap was horrendous, and the second lap here, I keep on going basically on the same set of tyres. I filled up enough fuel, but for some reason I was just losing time on that second lap. So really quite nerve-wracking right now, because we're down in P13 as it stands. We've got 2 minutes 40. That is just about enough to maybe come in and go out if we don't do a flying lap. If we go manually drive out of the garage, that may be enough time for us, because the lap timer in Austria, even in the wets, is still, you know, 1:11. So there's enough time to work with, but it was a little bit nerve-wracking at this stage, pulling in to the garage with 2 minutes to go, knowing that we're P13 and we only have one, you know, shot at this basically, because we go straight back out on a new set of intermediates. My last new set of inters, actually. So for Q3, we'll be qualifying on old, worn-out inters, which is a little bit annoying, but I don't know how the track's going to evolve. Maybe it might get a little bit drier as we go through into Q3. That'd be quite nice, but right now, we can't worry about that. We need to worry about getting through into that session. Thankfully, as the checkered flag falls, we are gaining 2 to 3 tenths just alone into Sector 2, so I don't know what went on in that first run, really, here in Q2. I don't know why I was losing so much time on that second consecutive lap. Maybe it just was the tyre wear, or I don't know. Still to this day, I don't have an explanation for it, why we gained all the time here on this third lap, but here we are then across the line, about 4.5 tenths gained, and it will get us through into the top 10 shootout, thankfully. A little bit lower down, though, myself and Sainz, we're P8 and 9, so hopefully we gain some pace into top 10 shootout to get us up the order, but obviously this does mean that come race day tomorrow, everyone has a free choice of tyres, because we've all qualified on intermediate, so unfortunately it may be quite a dull one-stop in the race, but obviously everything's getting closer and closer in R&D terms, so the fighting may be quite close despite the lack of a strategy. But we go into Q3 then. As I said, I've used all my intermediates at this point in the session, so they're all kind of worn. Obviously they're the inters, so it's not the same kind of wear as the slick tyres, so they'll still go pretty well. But we're on the first run here at the very start of this session. We're going to try and see what we can do. Sector 2 was a little bit better than it was in Q2 actually, as the track starts to dry out, so it was a little bit less treacherous there. But we're up into P3, so that's pretty decent. Vettel on pole though at the moment, provisional pole ahead of Bottas. Sainz down the order in P5, that is, and Hamilton way down the order there. Really not a great first lap for him. We go through into that second fly at the end of the session, but look at this. It's dry enough now that the FIA enabled DRS, and it basically made it impossible for me to gain time, at least. I'm not sure about the AI, because they're always quite overpowered in these kind of situations where it's like a changeable condition and they can just get the traction down, but I just had no grip out there, because technically I could have gone out on the slick tyres and kind of just, you know, risked it for a chocolate biscuit and could have, you know, got pole here, so kind of kicking myself in that kind of way. But I don't believe anyone else has also done that, because look at the top left, everyone's on inters, so I think everyone's in the same boat, so none of us are going to improve. We're down to P4. I don't know who actually improved there to go ahead of us. We'll see at the end of the session, but we're still going to remain P4. No one else should improve. By the time we get through to the end of the session, the one man that did improve was Leclerc, and he was the only one who went onto a set of slick tyres, the soft tyres, and so he gets pole position by 7 seconds, which is pretty mad, and probably the most advantage Ferrari will ever see in the 2020 scenario of things, if we're being real. But for us, P4, I think that's pretty decent. But it's a Ferrari lockout of the front row, which is very surprising to see. And Hamilton, like I said, way down the order. The championship, well, I'm the championship leader, but the man who's been leading the championship for most of this season, Hamilton, he's down in P10. I don't know what on earth went on for him in that qualifying session, but he's going to want to obviously play catch-up there. But almost like Noah's Ark in a way, apart from ourselves and Mercedes there, with 2 Ferraris, 2 Red Bulls, and 2 Racing Points lining astern. So, like I said, Sunday tomorrow, it's going to be interesting in terms of the fighting, but the strategy may not be. But from P4, obviously, once again, we're aiming for a podium, hopefully, and getting that, you know, sponsor goal, but also trying to do the best job we can. And obviously, last time we lost to our teammate for P2 to his P1, so let's go out there and try and rectify that, at least beat Sainz there out on track.
This is it then, race day in Spielberg for this year's Austrian Grand Prix. The grandstands were a sea of red in 2019 thanks to the commemorative hats in honour of the late great Niki Lauda, who took home victory, of course, back in 1984. And it's a sellout crowd once again here today. It's one of the shortest laps on the calendar today then, with 7 rights and just 3 lefts, making up the 10 corners of this high-speed circuit. Turn 2 is barely a corner at all. They'll be flat out through there, a left-hand kink into the uphill braking zone of turn 3. Turns 1, 3 and 4 are all potential opportunities to overtake. Anthony Davidson joins me once again in the commentary box. And it's fantastic to have you with us here today, but I'm curious, as a man with experience out on the track, how do you stop those pre-race nerves from becoming overwhelming when you're lining up on the grid?
But from the moment qualifying's over, you start to feel the adrenaline in your body build up and the buzz in your stomach as you anticipate the rundown into turn 1. It's all a bit like going into battle, and the unknown situation makes you nervous. Those pre-race nerves are a good thing. The day you don't have them means that you don't care anymore. And of course, you have to make sure that all the procedures are second nature to you, so that they're not taking up too much of your capacity.
It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Charles Leclerc lines up on pole position, with Sebastian Vettel starting alongside. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Bottas, the owner driver, Daniel Ricciardo and Verstappen, Sainz, Albon, Stroll and Lewis Hamilton, Ocon, Perez, Daniel Kvyat and Gasly, Russell, Magnussen, Antonio Giovinazzi and Lando Norris, Grosjean, Matsushita, Latifi and Jack Aitken. Now, it's almost time for lights out, so let's go down to the track.
As I said then, race strategy-wise, will be a little bit bland. It will be a one-stop from the soft tyre to the mediums, but we're aiming for a podium this race, so that should be exciting either way. But no rain in sight for this Sunday. So in terms of the tyre wear, well, it apparently doesn't look that bad because, you know, to be fair, a one-stop from soft to medium, you know, that you would say there's not going to be much of an issue there. But also the hard tyre is available for that second strategy. So potentially, depending on how we go, maybe there's some tyre wear at the end of this race. We're going to try and extend the soft tyre stint if we can a little bit there, customising the strategy just a bit, just to give us a bit more leeway on the mediums maybe, and also generally our cars suited the softer compound anyway. But we're going to load down the fuel. Fuel hasn't been much of an issue, although here at this race, fuel and ERS for the first time may be more of a management game because there's such little braking that goes on around Austria that you're not going to be able to recharge and kind of reharvest that energy. So as we've been kind of enjoying being able to deploy overtake mode so much of the lap in the last few races, this race genuinely might have actually some management again like we had all of season 1 basically. But anyway, here we go then. Coming off the back of last race, a 1-2 in the race for our team. At the moment, it's 1-2 for Ferrari on the front row. Fire lights are out and we're underway for this Austrian Grand Prix, and it's a good getaway for Bottas. A really slow one for Sebastian Vettel. The pole sitter goes very defensive. We try and go around the outside of the German there, up into P3, but on the exit, the Ferrari is going to gain some speed again as we wind up and we stop deploying ERS. Vettel comes back at me in the second phase of this straight and shoots it to the inside. Not only me, but also makes some contact with Leclerc, and we get pinched by the 2 Red Bulls of Ricciardo on the left-hand side. I feel that is, yeah, it is, and Verstappen on the right there, so we get kind of bullied out of that corner. So once again, a little bit of a slow start initially after a good getaway, kind of getting forced out wide by the AI, and Vettel with a kamikaze dive as we now have a great battle with Verstappen though on the exit as we go round the outside trying to jockey for position, squeeze him out, and we squeeze him so much so that Albon nicks it down the inside in the Racing Point car. So Albon up into a very decent lofty P6 for the Racing Point team. But as it stands then, it's Bottas that leads the way, then Leclerc, then you've got a big gap now on lap number 3 to Vettel v Ricciardo, because of course Vettel has damage on that left hand side of the front wing, and you can clearly see it's hampering him because I almost slammed the back of him. I'm quite lucky I didn't lose any bit of my front wing there because he was so slow off the corner. Ricciardo's trounced him. Now we're going to go for the move. It's actually Albon as well makes the move. Little cheeky man on the left hand side. He tried to make the double overtake work. We're having none of it into the brake zone. We retake that spot, so up into P4. But Albon is looking very punchy, I must say, in this Grand Prix. Maybe the Racing Point Point cars have had a subtle upgrade. I saw on the R&D chart, I think they subtly improved a little bit, but maybe that's made a massive difference for them on circuit, of course. But now we move through lap number 5, then 2 laps later, so we're kind of doing these overtakes two laps at a time here as we catch up to the Aussie man who was able to pip us on lap number 1. But here we go, sailing around the outside there. We can stop using ERS quite early on into the straight, although for the next right-hander, big lockup, and Ricciardo's able to get it back down the inside there, and we've had a horrible tank stopper on the exit, and we make some more contact with the Australian. We go wheel to wheel, bit of collision made as we bang the front tyres there on the right-hand side for us, but we're going to keep it through on the left-hand side to squeeze them out and maintain the position. But very hairy. I mean, at that corner, let alone with a mistake like that and a lockup, I'm pretty poor off the exit because the AI just pick up the traction so quickly. But with that lockup there, it's so easy for him to make the move to the inside. But we're going to eventually settle in and kind of push away. The rest of the lap is pretty okay for us. As you can clearly see, purple first sector, that engine power coming to good use for us as well, of course. But red second and third, but able to obviously close up still with Leclerc. And now we're within 1 second to use DRS on lap number 9 this is. So a few laps later, but now can we make a dive? Leclerc goes a little bit defensive. We go very tentative into this corner, trying to set up a move on this second straight there. Leclerc so slow out that corner, almost pushing him through the exit. So we're able to open up DRS again, use a little bit of overtake mode. Rich Mix use this entire time as we go into negative. This time we lock up again, but I don't make the mistake of opening up the space on the right. You saw I kind of move through to the middle part of the circuit to block off Leclerc and make sure he doesn't do what Ricciardo did, and we're able to maintain the P2 and then go chasing after Valtteri Bottas. Now this is about 4 laps later then, so 4 laps of getting our head down, pushing hard. Looks like we continue to be pretty pacey in Sector 1, also rectifying the pace a little bit in Sector 2, but still red on that last lap in Sector 3, but it won't matter. We can get the job done in this Sector 1 here with DRS open, using so much ERS there that we're able to go around the outside. We fake to the right, went to the outside. Bottas gives us the room, to be fair, so fair play to him, and we go sailing around the outside, get some great traction, use some more ERS on the exit there, using probably the most ERS I have on those 2 straights in this entire race there to get the job done. But now we've got an issue with fuel. Look at the bottom right, we're nearly minus 0.8, so I really wasn't lying. We do have an issue with fuel at this race, and also ERS having to manage that, and so we go on a fuel saving mission here up until lap number 16 onto 17, coming for the pit stop. Leclerc has overtaken Bottas now, so he's slowed up a little bit, but we all kind of slowed up because I basically went on to massive fuel saving mode, like lift and coast. I'm talking lean mixture, and so that did lose us a few seconds, I feel, almost in those next 2 to 3 laps. So I feel like Albon and Sainz, who pit literally on that next lap, they've had 2 laps on the medium tyres, and they're really looking good. And the undercut has worked a treat, because I think that's Albon flying through, and there is Sainz through the exit turn 1. Albon now leads the way in this Grand Prix, and Sainz side by side with us gets the jump on us there, and so he's up into P2. So that's how much time we all lost out, basically. Those 2 were stuck behind me, of course, and that's how much time I gave up trying to save the fuel, because that was a lot of fuel to burn. You know, minus 0.8, it's very easy to burn that in rich mix. It's a lot harder to gain that back in lean mixture and lifting and coasting. So and a couple with Albon and Sainz pitting a lot earlier, and the undercut clearly working a treat with the tyre wear being quite high on those soft tyres. They've jumped us massively, you know. I think that Albon was like a good 4 seconds behind us, and so he's made all that time up, and now we're going to try and really overtake our teammate, let alone before getting on towards that Racing Point car, who now leads surprisingly in first place. We showed some great pace in that first stint, so I think our car has the ability to close up, and we will do that on lap 18 straight away. First sector gaining a little bit too much time almost in a way. Sainz is so slow into that corner, we have to take avoiding action or either slam to the back of him, and so Leclerc gets it down the inside as we get on the curb, and he actually hits us a little bit as he swerves right. It's all getting a bit frosty between myself and the Ferrari man as we dive down the inside. Bit of contact made. DRS there gets us alongside, but oh, on the curb we've spun it. No, the rear end goes round and we've spammed the car. We're down to P7. I think that'll be it, as Ocon was quite far away, so thankfully the midfield had a bit of a gap there, otherwise that could have been a lot worse. But we've spun it completely, done a 360 there. Easy to do apparently in these 2020 cars that we've seen at the British Grand Prix gone by with Vettel and Ricciardo, but oh god, that is abysmal there. So first of all, lost the position here, as I said, I either slams the back of Sainz or make that avoiding action, but that allowed the Ferrari to get through. Then Leclerc gets very punchy with me for some reason. I try to be punchy back with him, and we go down the inside there, and that is the moment where things went wrong. We didn't even make any contact with Leclerc. It wasn't anything to do with Leclerc that spammed me round. It was just a case of, because obviously on the inside there, you're going to be tight on the curb anyway, let alone, you know, no matter how much space the car on the left gives you, and I think my right rear tyre was on the curb, and yeah, just dropped the throttle and span it round. So I pretty much did a bit of a spin bar there and just ruined my entire race in a way. So now we've got a lot of fighting back to do because we've got some clean air, to be fair, as these guys fight, as Valtteri Bottas is trying to re-overtake Leclerc, of course, because he overtook him earlier in the race. So Bottas up into P3. Albon still leads the way, by the way, in first place from Sainz. Bottas, Leclerc, and then it's going to be Ricciardo. But to be fair, Leclerc comes back at Bottas. That Ferrari looking quite punchy. In fact, can he make it go the long way round? No, he can't quite. And so Bottas will maintain that, but for us, we're trying to close up to this. These guys fighting is a good thing for us, because hopefully they'll just kind of slow each other down. And by the time we get to lap 24, we can see them in the distance. So clearly you can see, even with the spin, you know, the tyre temperature's recovered, and we've got some really good pace. And it's that kind of classic thing in real life F1, you know, when these guys are in a train, that, you know, it's very difficult to gain time on people and kind of, you know, have good lap times. But in clean air, I'm actually the one flying here, so it's not a silver lining, but you can see my car very much has much better pace to close back up, so we can recover. It's just a case of then, once we catch up to them, can we actually make the moves, or will we get stuck in a DRS train of our own? Well, speaking about making moves, one man that is looking to make another move here in this race is Valtteri Bottas there, flexing the muscles, that Mercedes engine down the inside. Sainz puts up a good fight, and he's neck and neck on the exit. Meanwhile, on that same lap then, as Bottas tries to overtake my teammate, we're now on the back of Sergio Perez in the AlphaTauri, doing a great job in that junior Red Bull team, but we're flying now with DRS and ERS, and we're feeling very aggressive here today now. After that spin, I'm determined to make these moves count and get the job done. So a very punchy move on the inside there, up into P6. Now can we try and overtake Max Verstappen? So I didn't even realise, actually, it's not even the Red Bull of Ricciardo, it's Verstappen. So I don't know how these two have swapped at some point in the race, but Ricciardo's now way down the order, I feel. I don't know, I haven't seen him at all since that first stint, but we're on the back of the Dutchman then. It is DRS open, once again deploying ERS. At this moment in time, we're not really worrying too much about fuel. I'm just kind of using it all, and we'll save some fuel at the end of the race. We go now on the outside, bit of a bold move, lock up at the front right, and Verstappen is able to keep that momentum, and we lose so much pace in the exit there that Perez dives back down the inside of me there. So the AlphaTauri really is a much better car these days, very raceable car, as Perez is able to try and attack me on the exit. We're able to maintain the position, thankfully, there, but a little bit sketchy, so we have to try and recompose ourselves. It takes us a further 2 laps to get the pace back up and catch back up to Verstappen. Lap 29 onto 30, then 6 laps to go in this Grand Prix, and we're looking likely to make a move into turn 1, maybe. Verstappen very defensive, and I'll tighten up his turn 1. Bit of a wheel bang on the right as Verstappen tries to hold the position, but in the end, no use. We're up into P5, and actually a little bit of a funny situation there as Perez overtakes him straight away as well. So the AlphaTauri is flying high as the leading Red Bull car in this Grand Prix, so that's quite embarrassing for the Red Bull team at the Red Bull ring, you would say, as we move through lap 32, and we're now looking at the top 4 fight potentially. Leclerc up ahead of us, the man we tried to fight when we span. Obviously wasn't his fault, but I want to try and get this job done the proper way now and get the job done and overtake him this time, and then can we kind of get on the back of our teammate who's been struggling now ever since Bottas overtook him. Well, actually, to be fair, Bottas, since he overtook him, hasn't really moved ahead. You can see Bottas has almost been a bottleneck to this train here, so we've got to thank him in a way for slowing these two down as we now make the move. Bit of deja vu here, moving from left to right. This time we got on the curb, but we try and force our way through and get the elbows out, make some contact on the exit, but I don't care. I need to get that job done, and I was not having a kind of PTSD flashback there on that curb of spinning around again, so we made sure we went wide before we accelerated, and now we're on here on the last lap of the Grand Prix. A lot of tyre wear though. For a one stop, it is pretty on a touch and go, you know, because those tyres are very worn. I can very much feel them in the car, and you can see them visually with the heads-up display on the right-hand side, but we're still gaining on Sainz, so potentially he is feeling more tyre wear than I am. So could we make a last gasp overtake on the last lap for the podium position here? At the moment, it's going to be Albon, by the way, who's still winning this Grand Prix, still leading the way, who's going to go on to win this one. Bottas second, but could we be in third place here as we go down the inside of Sainz? Going to leave in the room, of course, on the outside. Lock up at the front right as the tyre wear kicks in as well. He's lost some traction on the curb, but as we swoop through to the left-hand side, Sainz, I guess, uses some overtake mode and punches back, and so we're jockeying for position side by side through the last sector this is now, and Perez is not too far away. The AlphaTauri is overtaking the Ferrari even, so Perez is really flying in that car today. We run out of ERS mode because we literally used all of it in the first 2 sectors, so Sainz is able to maintain the podium podium position. So yet again, we're beaten by our teammate, and it's not the podium for us, but it is a podium for the team. But what could have been, you know, we were in first place at one point, so, you know, with Scientology speeding up in that race, it could have been another double podium there. But in the end, it's Alexander Albon, the driver of the day, fair play, won the Grand Prix. Insane for the Racing Point team.
That's it then for another spectacular Grand Prix here in Austria, and a truly magnificent drive to hang on and take the win. And talk to me, what do you think it was that sealed the win for them?
Well, when you overtake that many people, I'd certainly hope you'd win the race. Their car was really effective in the slipstream here today, and the team will be pleased that they didn't cook the engine, given how long they were spending in the hot air behind other cars. They had a lot of confidence to push their tyres hard as well, especially going into the corners, which allowed for some late braking and some exciting passes.
The Racing Point team will be very happy with today's performance and the final result. Another display of excellent driving and excellent teamwork, and a well-deserved first-place finish.
So it's Albon's first podium for the team since that very first one, the Australian Grand Prix. Remember, ever since then, Racerboy did drop off quite a fair bit in R&D terms, so it's kind of almost nice in a way to see them right up there. But he kind of obviously lucked into that lead a little bit, you know, with the kind of first stint, the way the fuel saving had to go for us, and, you know, we're slowing down Leclerc and Bottas whilst we did that fuel saving. And also the fighting that went on then subsequently with Bottas and Sainz, and, you know, me catching up after the spin definitely helped him out. I feel like if it wasn't for that spin, we probably could have gone after him and closed him up, because I think all of us actually closed up to him in that last stint. So a bit of a shame there, but we still lead the way in the championship. Hamilton had a dismal race, so I don't know what's going on with him. You know, he was so consistent and dominant in this kind of, you know, second stage of the season. You know, Bottas started quite strong, but then Lewis came to his own. But the last two races, very, very poor for them. And as a team, of course, we still get a good 3-4, so that's going to do us some good work to maintain the lead in the Constructors' Championship. Rivalry breakdown, we're looking good for beating Sebastian Vettel. We've got one race left, and it's pretty much impossible. So we've actually won that rivalry against Sebastian Vettel. So we'll get some extra acclaim for our player, of course. And we continue to make progress on the team acclaim with slow progress, still chipping away to get to level 19. And then we got a whole nother level to level 20. That's going to take an absolute age, I feel. But a good 1.69 million in the bank there, with all the sponsor goals obtained, with Sainz getting the podium. So even if we can't do the sponsor goal, our teammate can. So that's all good. And now we got a cool over 18.112 million in the bank in this episode. So all things considered, it was a good recovery for us. It was a shame in that spin, but mistakes happen sometimes. And, you know, it was quite a pressurized one with Leclerc being quite aggressive with me. You know, I felt like I had to be so punchy, but I guess that punchiness was a bit over-aggressive on the curb with the throttle pedal on the right foot, and it just cost us the cost us the race win potentially. So it is a bit of a kick in the teeth, but it happens in Formula 1, so you should accept it. So guys, if you did enjoy that episode, then be sure to hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you aren't around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I've been aarava. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the day. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.